So Davav Amud Aleph, we'll start from where we left off. We'll start where the Shiur started on Monday, which is from the Mishnah on Daf Amud Beis. And we do it outside the overview. But basically, the Mishnah, to summarize, the Mishnah Daf Amud Beis is busy with situations where there's more than two Eidim. What happens when there's more than two Eidim? But the discussion starts from the Lashon of the Pasuk. The Lashon of the Pasuk is Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim Yakum Dav. In fact, there's more than one place where it says such a Lashon, I think. Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim. And the obvious question is, why do you need to say that? If two Eidim is good enough to set something up, to say that some Reuven is chayav money or Reuven is chayav misa, so three for sure is okay. Why? Why does the Pasuk say Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim? So ultimately, the Mishnah says four different dinim that we learn from the Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim. The first din is that shloisha is just like shnayim. Just like it's obvious that three Eidim can be mazim two Eidim. Just like it's obvious because they're more. There's no reason why not. So two Eidim can be mazim three, right? Just like two can be hozam al yidei three, so three can be mazim al yidei two, right? That's din number one. From the word of Eidim, we learn that's al pishnayim shloisha. From the word Eidim, we learn that even in Meah, even 100 Eidim, two Eidim are like Meah, and two Eidim can make 100 Eidim zaymim if they say Moneh Yisrael. That's din number one. Din number two is Reb Shimon's din, which is that just like there's a din that when you have two Eidim and one of them is found zaymim, it's no good. Meaning that the Eid who's found zaymim doesn't get punished despite until both Eidim are found zaymim. So too, it's a big chiddush that even when there's three Eidim and two of them are found zaymim, so you could say the third Eid who needs him? We didn't need him in the first place. No, when it's one set and there's three Eidim or even 100 Eidim, you need all 100 Eidim to be found zaymim in order to get punished. And like we see later, in order to be mevatel eidos, as long as you found one to be zaymim, maybe the whole eidos goes out of the window. But in order for them to get punished, all the 100 need to get punished. That's the second din. The third din is Rabbi Kiva, who essentially saying that the whole pasuk, the third thing that we learn out of Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim is, according to Rabbi Kiva, that I might think that when there's a third Eid, he shouldn't get punished at all, even if he's found to be zaymim. Let's say all three Eidim are found to be zaymim. We could say, the third guy could say, what do you mean? I came later. The guy would have, they didn't need me. The two Eidim themselves, if they would have gone on with their kasha zamam, they would have got the guy, the nidon, killed despite me not being here. So I'm not necessary. So why should I get punished? You say, no, you joined on, you're part of the Eidos, you get punished just the same. And the Gemara, the Mishnah says that if that's the oynish for nitfal lo'isavei, for somebody who's an accompanying, who's like an unnecessary addition to an avera, all the more so somebody who's helping out a mitzvah, even though he's not necessary, but he's involved with it, that the schar is alachas kama v'kama. And the fourth din, which the is the hemshech of Rabbi Kiva, is that Apishnayim Eidim Shloisha Eidim tells me that when you have a set of Eidim which are more than two, if nimsa echam and karev pasul, one of them is found to be an Eid pasul or karev, the whole Eid goes out of the window. Again, the what do you mean? You have two Eidim, two kosher Eidim. The third Eid is a brother of the murderer. What should it matter to me? You say no. Since it's one Eidus, they all came together to be made, and we'll soon see in the Gemara how they consider one set and how they consider two sets. But if they consider one set, nimsa echem and karev pasul it doesn't betail, and even by Meah, even if you have 100 Eidim and one of the Eidim is found to be karev, the whole Eidus goes out of the window. That's the fourth din. And then in the second half of the Mishnah, there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi as to when exactly we say this din of nimsa echem and karev pasul it doesn't betail. Rabbi Yossi says that the determining factor is whether it's din in the nefashos or din in mammons. If it's din in nefashos, we're trying to save the nidon from being killed, then nimsa echem and karev pasul it doesn't betail always. And if it's din in mammonos, then we don't say this din. As long as you've got two kosher Eidim, it doesn't matter whether the other 98 are krevim or psulim. Rabbi argues, and he says the distinction isn't between din in mammonos and din in nefashos. Even by din in mammonos, if nimsa echem and karev pasul the Eidus is battle. But he also says sometimes yes, sometimes not. His the way he determines whether it's one Eidus or not is he says it depends on whether, I'm going to say, whether niskavnu laha'ed or not, whether they intended to be made or not. The Lashon Mishnah is whether they warned or not. But the Chor and the Kudah is that when the Eidim warned, so we know that the purpose is to be made. But if they didn't warn, so then they just happen to be bystanders. They happen to be there. That doesn't make them Eidim. The fact that you're somewhere doesn't make you Eid. It's only if you have kavanah to be made. That is the Mishnah. The Gemara now says, you have 100 Eidim come. They're always considered one set. So Rabbi says, no, they're only considered one set. They come toichtei dibur. The Gemara straight away asks, toichtei dibur, if you have 100 Eidim, which the Mishnah discusses and says that 100 Eidim can also be considered one set, how can 100 Eidim testify toichtei dibur? It's impossible. The Gemara says, no, it doesn't mean that they all testify with him toichtei dibur. It means each Eid testifies toichtei dibur of the Eid which preceded him. Each Eid testifies shortly after the previous Eid testified, and that makes him makes it one set. But if it's not toichtei dibur, then attack a separate sets, and we're not going to say nimsach and karve paslei dusim betela. And according to Rashi, we're not going to say that they all need to be found zoymim in order to be punished. They consider different sets. What makes them one set is the toichtei dibur element. Okay, so then we move on to the din of Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says that din in the fashis, we always say that someone who's present makes it possible. He doesn't make this distinction between the skavnu lahayid or not. That was Rabbi. Rabbi Yossi just said din in the fashis and din in mamnis. Din in the fashis is always considered one set of as long as it's toichtei dibur, as long as it's toichtei dibur. But they're always considered one set. Yeah, and nimsa achem and karve pasul they do some potatoes. So the Gemara asks the kasha, just a second. Every case of murder, we shouldn't be able to kill the murderer because the person murdered, the nidoy, the victim of the murder, is present and he sees the murder happen. So he's a karev. So it's a nimsa achem and karve pasul. In other words, according to Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi, you need niskavnu lahad. He's not a haid. He's a nidoy. So the Gemara answers, no, we're talking about if he taka killed him from front in the normal way, and the nerag sees him, then taka there's not going to be then taka it's not going to be kosher edus because nimsach mekar apostle. The whole situation where the Torah says that Ritzeach gets the death penalty for murdering is only kosher me'achayra when the nidin doesn't see. The Gemara says, what about Revia? Same thing, Ravi me'achayra. So then he said that's very nice with regards to the victim of the murder, the victim of the revia, right? But what about the fact that the murderer himself or the revia himself is present at the time of the murder or revia? So he should also be yatzel. He's a karavetz latzmai. So the Gemara Taka says that in that case the Amor didn't have what to say, and finally Rava said no. That the pasuk which we learn it out from pasuk we learn that nimsa achem karve pasuk doesn't betela says apishnaim edim yakum dav, which means to say only those people who are being mekayme dav, only those people who are testifying, but not oisei dav. In other words, not those people, the people who are part of the story. They're not edim. By definition, they're not edim. An edim is someone who views something else, not the person who's doing the act or the person who the act is being done to. And then finally, at the end of the Amud of Davav Amud Aleph, we discuss the shit of Rabbi. The Rabbi says that it has to be niskavnu lahayit, and in the Mishnah he says that he has to warn. If the Edom are warning, so then it's clear, it's evident that they are part of that they're being Edom. And nimsach me'karv apostle doesn't tailor. But if they're not warning, if the karv apostle didn't warn, so then it's evident then they're not necessarily Edom, and we're not going to say nimsach me'karv apostle doesn't tailor. The Gemara nevertheless asks the kasha, and the Gemara is that what happens if there's no hasram? Maybe it's dinimominous, Taisus explains. Or Stam, they weren't master. They weren't master. We'll learn later that the Edom don't have to be the ones who are master, according to the Tanakama of the next Mishnah. So what happens if the Edom weren't master? How do you know whether the Edom will niskavnu lahayid or not? So the Gemara says that Hasra is taka one way of determining it. Well, that's what we see in the Mishnah. But the Gemara adds that in the case where there's no such way of determining, we taka ask the Edom, what were you doing over there? Were you there to testify or were you there just to see? If they say we were there to testify, then nimsach me'karve apostle doesn't tailor. But if they say that we were just bystanders, we were just seeing what was going on, we didn't plan on testifying, so then then what can you do? If there's a car that happens to be present by a murder scene, you can't pass the edus just because of that. Okay, and then we said that some say halacha Rabbi Yossi, some say the halacha is Rabbi, the halacha b'emes. In other words, bottom line is taka like Rav Nachman, who says the halacha is Rabbi, that just being present by a event doesn't make you an aid. That's been niskavnu lahayid, which is either by hasra or that we question them later and they admit to be saying that lasudi asisu, that we were there with the kavanah to be made. So that's the end of Vav Amud Aleph. In Vav Amud Beis, we kind of continue the same sort of theme where you have more than two Eidim, at least the Mishnah does. Same sort of theme where you have more than two Eidim. When is it considered one set? When is it considered two sets? So the Mishnah says when the if you have two sets of Adam looking from two different angles, two different windows, so what makes them one set is if at least one of the Adam can see one of the other Adam. One of the Adam from one set can see one of the Adam from the other set. But if they can't see each other, then they're two separate Adios. What's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is that if the one set, there's two nafkaminas really, yeah. If the one set, if they consider one set, so if two out of the four Adam are found to be Zoimim, then Sai, the Zoimim are not going to get punished. And Sai, the Nidin's not going to get punished because it's Nimsa Achem and Karve Pasal. Right? Neither are going to get the punishment. Masha Enkin, if you consider them two sets, and one of the sets is found Zoimim, then so just to repeat, if it's just in case I didn't make it clear, if it's one set, then nobody gets killed. The two Adam who found Zoimim don't get killed because you need actually a Zoim was Kulam. The whole set needs to be found Zoimim. The Nidin doesn't get killed because you don't have an Adus over. The Adus has already been split in half and torn apart. Two of them are found to be Pasal. And that's it. But when it's two sets, so then there's an interesting thing where the Nidin gets killed because of the kosher set of Adam, and the two Adam who are found to be Zoim are also going to get killed because they're an independent set who are found to be Zoim, and the fact that the other two are kosher doesn't affect them. Now, but Bein Advarim, we said that there was a masra in the middle. The Mishnah accepts the fact that there was a masra, there was someone else warning. So Rabbi Yossi argues on that. He says you can't just have another guy warning. The guy who warns has to be one of the Adam. Says in the Pascal, Pishnaim Adam, that we learn from there that the Adam, right? There's a din. The Adam have to testify, and you also need Hasra. Does it have to be done by the Adam? So the Tanakhama says no, anyone can do Hasra. And Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion that the Adam have to be the ones to do the Hasra from Al-Pishnaim Adam. And then the Mishnah says another pshat that we can learn Al-Pishnaim Adam, in which case we don't hold that Rabbi Yossi, is that the Al-Pishnaim Adam just means that the Adam have to talk directly to the Dayanim. The Dayanim have to hear the Pishnei Adam, the mouth of the Adam, but not through an interpreter. If the Dayanim don't understand the language of the Adam, and the Adam are talking through an interpreter, that doesn't work. That's not a good Adam. So that's the Mishnah. Then the Gemara continues with a similar topic, but a different case. Meaning we're not talking about a situation where there's two Adam over here and two Adam over there. Do they join together? But what happens when you have one Aid over here and one Aid over there? Do they join together to make an Aidus of two? To make an Aidus Bechlal? And the Gemara says, that the Amor says that no. Aidus Miuchadus is possible. Obviously, we're talking about a situation where the one Aid can't see the other Aid. It's possible. Because it says Lo Yumas Al Pi Aid Echad. And we learn from Lo Yumas Al Pi Aid Echad, which is superfluous, because it already says Al Pi Shnai Eidim Yakum Dava that you need two Aidim. So what does Lo Yumas Al Pi Aid Echad? One is no good. You already told me you need two. So when he says one is not good, it means to say one is not good when you have one Aid here and one Aid there, and they don't see each other, you can't join them together. That's the Aidus Miuchadus. That is no good. And we brought a raya from a brayso which says clearly the same thing, that Lo Yumas Al Pi Aid Echad. The pasuk tells me the same thing, that if you have one from this window, one from this window, they're not mitzdaref. And then the Mishnah, the brayso continues actually that even by the same window, even when the Adam are together, but if they're not seeing it at the same time, because one guy sees what's going on and the other guy only sees later what's going on, it's also no good. So the Gemara asks a kasha, just a second. Well, why is that v'lo oil? Why is that a chiddush? The chura, in a case where there's one by one window, one by the other window, at least they're both seeing the entire event, they're both seeing the same thing. But if you have one aid over here by the same window, and they're kind of switching places, and one aid sees part of the story, and one aid sees the other part of the story, you don't have two aidim seeing the entire thing. So for sure it's no good. So the Gemara answers, no, you're right. In such a situation, it's obvious it's no good. The chiddush of the Bryce is talking about a case where it's an erva. They're being roya, someone being boiled as an erva, which in that case, it's possible for each aid to see the whole Maisa, or to see a Shiur which of the Maisa, which is incriminating enough, and therefore they're both seeing the Maisa, and therefore the chiddush is that despite the fact that they're both seeing the Maisa, and despite the fact that they're both together, they see each other, just that it's no good because they have to both see the Maisa together. It's not good enough that they're both together and they can see each other. They have to both, in other words, there has to be two things have to be happening. Number one is that they see the entire Maisa. They see the entire Maisa. That's a given, sorry. And then there's two other things that need to happen. That they need to both see each other, but besides both seeing each other, they have to also both be seeing each other b'sha'as re'iyas ha'maisa. And therefore, the fact that the eidim are together, if they're not seeing the act at the same time, then it's no good. Then Rava qualifies this. I'm going to explain Rava to be talking about this, because Rava qualifies it. You should know there's another case where mitzdarif, even if the eidim don't see each other, but if the eidim see the masra, if there's a third party where the eidim, right, the two eidim see the masra, and the masra In other words, so not the two Eidim, the one Eid. You have one Eid by one window, one Eid by another window. So they don't join together because they can't see each other. But if there's a master in the middle and they both can see the master, or the master can see both of them, then the master can join them together. The person warning can join them together, and it's a good Eidus. And then Rabbi said a second then, which is really just kind of explaining the first case of the Mishnah, the Tanakama of the Mishnah, who says that the master doesn't have to be the Eidim. Says the doesn't have to be the two Eidim, it could be someone else. Says the Rava that the master could even be mipi atzmai. The master can even be the Nerag himself. Or the master can even be a shade. It doesn't have to be a human being. As long as the Nidin hears Hasra, that's good enough. There's no din that it has to be the Eidim or it has to be a human being, even as long as they hear Hasra, that's good enough. And then towards the end of Daf Vav base, Rav Nachman further qualifies the din that we just done, the Eidus Muchedes is no good, right? The din that one Eid over here, one Eid over there, they don't see each other, doesn't join together, says Rav Nachman, not always, only din in the Fashis. The Imaminus Eidus Muchedes does work. And the reason why he says this is because the Pasuk, Lo Yumas Al Piyedach, is Tumat Misa. Pasuk, which is the marker for the din of Eidus Muchedes, the one Eid over here, one Eid over there, don't join together, if they don't see each other, is only talking about Misa, but by Maminus, it's going to work. And then the Gemara asks, if that's the case, you're telling me that by Etzem it does work, and it's exactly a cause of Lo Yumas Al Piyedachad. So the Chora, all it means to say is we don't kill someone based on the Eidus Muchedes. But in a situation where you're not killing somebody, where it's going the other direction, it should work. What's Pshat? So Rashi explains that we're talking about a situation, and it's Mucha from the Gemara as well, Hu V'hei Neragin. Yeah, we're talking about a situation where you have two Eidim by one window, two Eidim by another window. And we said if they don't see each other, then if one set's found Zayimim, Hu V'hei Neragin, the Nidin is killed, and the Zayimim are also killed. Freddy Gemara, if the Etzem Eidus Muchedes works at two sets of, two units of Eidim, one by one window, one by another window, don't join together. It could join together like Bedin Imaminus. So L'chor Bedin and Fashis should also sometimes join together. Lo Yumas Al Piyedach, you shouldn't be able to kill somebody based on these this disparate Eidus, this Eidus which is separate one from the other. But in a case where you're saving people, as a result, we should join it together. And in such a situation where you have one set found Zomim and the other not found Zomim, if you're going to consider it one set, then what's going to happen? You're going to save the Zomim, you're also going to save the Nidin. You're going to save the Zomim because actually Zomim was Kulam. You need to be Mazim the whole set. And you're also going to save the Nidin because it's now one set. So, L'chora, why don't we say, if we find the concept that Eidus Muchedes, the Eidus which is split up, works by Dinim Ominous, surely it should work by Dinim Fashis as well, to save somebody. Not to kill somebody, but to save somebody, like in the case of the Mishnah of Huvahei Neragin, where you have two sets of Eidim, and one of the sets is found Zayimim, and the other isn't found Zayimim. Why does the Mishnah say Huvahei Neragin and the Nidin and the Zayimim are to be killed? The Chora, no one should get killed. And the Gemara says Kasha, which means to say that the din stays, the din of the Amora and the Mishnah stays, and the fact that it seems to be somewhat of a contradiction is difficult, but there's obviously some sort of answer out there. And then we move along to case of Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah. Yeah, Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah said, he argued with Tanakam. He said, and automatically argues with the din of Rava that Master Shamra Filum Piyatzma Filum Pishet. Right. So that's the approach of the Tanakam, and the halacha attack is that way, that you don't need Hasra to be done dafka through the Eidim. As long as Hasra is done, it's good. Rabbi Yossi argued, and he said the Hasra has to be done through the Eidim. So Gemara asks the Kasha, how can Rabbi Yossi be the one to say that Hasra is done through the Eidim? There's another Rabbi Yossi, I believe in the second parak, or maybe in other places as well. I think it's a Mishnah in Makkos. Let's check. Yeah, in Perik Elin Agoinen. He says the Hasoine, right? We know that someone who kills B'Shoige gets Galus. Someone who kills B'Mezid, usually it's only Chayiv Misa if there's Eidim and Hasra. So we say that Rabbi Yossi says no. You should know that Hasoine, someone who's an enemy, is an exception to the rule, that he gets Nerag, he gets killed even when there's no Asra. Even when there's no Asra, even when we're not necessarily absolutely sure that it was a Mazid, we can go with the Chazaka that a Soine, he's an enemy, he's a Mazid, and he doesn't need Asra. Which means to say he doesn't hold up the whole concept of Asra in certain cases. So for sure, he doesn't need Asra to be Ali De'edin. Yeah. He's making an Asra. He says he don't need, how can you say Kimud or Musa, but there's no Asra, right? According to the Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi says that the Eidim have to be master. The din the Eidim have to be master. So if the Eidim have to be master, you can't tell me something Nation Musra V'Oimid. In certain cases, a person, it's as if Asra is done without it being done. Because Rabbi Yossi would say that even when Asra is done, you need Eidim. It's a steer Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara answers, you should know, it's two different Rabbi Yossis. One, the Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, Stam Rabbi Yossi, which by the way means Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chalafta. And the Gemara, the Bryce, the other Mishnah, which says that Soine Nereg Neshul Kamud, the Soine is killed even without Hasra, is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, as we see in the Bryce, where the Bryce specifies it's not Rabbi Yossi, but it's Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, who says that a Chover ain't Sark Hasra, that a Talmud Chacham doesn't need Hasra because Hasra was only to distinguish between Shoigig and Mezid, which means to say that the only time you need Hasra is when you need to determine whether the guy is Shoigig or Mezid. Shoigig or Mezid can mean two different things. It can be Mezid, could mean the intention, right? Or were you just being careless with a gun? You're playing with a gun and you killed somebody. And that's one Shoigig Mezid. Another thing is that someone could kill someone with intention, but if he doesn't know the severity of the sin and he doesn't, you can say, I'm a mutter, you could say, I thought it was mutter, or you could say that I didn't realize it was Chaim Misa. But a Chavar, someone who is a Talmud Chacham, doesn't need Asra because he knows the severity of the sin. And when it's a Soine, so then you don't even need to know for sure that it was Mezid. The pastors, that the act was an act of Mezid as well. And that's Rabbi Yossi, but we don't know. But Rabbi Yossi, the Mishnah is a different Rabbi Yossi. He doesn't hold to this, that Svar, the Hasra is just a Hasra is just in order to be Mavchim Yisrael Amazing. No, there's Xeris HaKasav, there has to be Hasra, and it has to be done through the Eidim. And that's his opinion. Finally, we get to the final case in the Mishnah, which is the Tanakama, which is back to the Tanakama, really, that Tapishnayim Eidim doesn't tell me that the Hasra has to be done through the Eidim, but rather that the Eidim have to speak directly to the Dayanim. There can't be an interpreter between the Eidim and the Dayanim. So the Gemara asks a kasha that from the Gemara, that Rava, Taka, foreigners came to him and he put him a Turkmen, he put an interpreter in between them and him. So it contradicts the Mishnah. So the Gemara answers, you're right. If Taka, the Dayanim don't understand what the Eidim are saying, if that was what Rava was doing, because he didn't understand the Eidim, then it wouldn't be good. Rava did understand what the Eidim was saying. So why did he need a Turkmen? He needed a Turkmen because he couldn't speak their language. He understood their language, he didn't speak their language. So he instituted a Meturgeman so that he could speak to them. But when they spoke to him, he understood what they were saying without the need of the Meturgeman. So it's clear that the din of Al Pishnaim Eidim, the Eidim talk directly to the Dayanim, is one way. The Eidim have to talk directly to the Dayanim. The Dayanim could talk to the Eidim through interpreter, that's fine. And finally, what seems to be more of an unrelated topic is the discussion about if the Eidim are not, they're Korev, not to the Malva, the Loiva, but to the Orev, the guarantor. Is that considered Apostle Eidus or not? The Gemara says there was a Havamina. Papa had a Havamina to say that the main Nidoin, the main Bali Dover over here, the main people who are involved with the story is the Malva and the Loiva. Since the Eidim are not related neither to the Malva nor to the Loiva, they could be Kasher Eidim. But so on, Rav Huna Beis Yeshua said to the Papa, no, that's not true. Because ultimately, the Orev is also a Baldin, because if the Loiva doesn't have money to pay, then the Orev pays. And since the Eidim are related to the Arev, so that makes them possible, and it's no good. Okay, we'll stop over here.